First of all, it's known that globalization, and in that maybe technology, hasn't really helped equally across the board. Is this going to remain a key topic of discussion going into 2017?
I think it absolutely will, Caroline. Globalization and technology and innovation have had huge benefits over the years, but that benefit has not been equally felt. If you look at how VC dollars have been invested in the U.S., you start to see that it's just a handful of places that have gotten most of the investment.
I mean, fascinating. You name, of course, here in California, there's the likes of Washington. Put in these sort of numbers in perspective, because certain states really win out, whereas a vast number of states barely gain any of the VC dollars.
Absolutely. I mean, it really is a tale of concentration in just a handful of states. So about $59 billion was invested in venture capital last year in the U.S., and of that, $47 billion went to only 4 states. Those states are California, New York, Washington, and Massachusetts. And if you superimpose a map of red states and blue states in our U.S. political system against venture dollars invested, you start to see that these dollars have led to a real divide. If you look at states like Florida, where less than $500 million was invested, or Ohio, where it was only about $250 million invested, you see the stark contrast to these 4 states where a majority of the venture capital dollars have gone.
So, Raj, I mean, fascinating numbers. Who plays up to this? Do we see the government start to try and help breed more ecosystems across different states, as we're likely to see across different countries? Is it your role as a venture capitalist to go and look harder in the states that perhaps aren't getting the bang for the VC buck right now?
It's a great question. I think the incoming administration has made it a priority to say that they do want technology and innovation to impact more people. And I think we as venture capitalists, as technologists, we all bear a responsibility. And I think that responsibility is in 2 places. One, in hiring. We talk a lot about diversity in hiring, but that diversity in hiring really needs to extend to just beyond a few pockets in the US. And then 2, the companies that we invest in, the companies that we back, for these companies to truly become large companies, they have to serve a wider consumer base. And I think that's what you've seen with the companies that have had real breakout success, like Uber, that as they launched UberX and had a price point that was accessible to a lot more customers, that's when the company really took off.
I mean, like Uber, it's a global company, and populism and wealth inequality is a global problem as well. And are we starting to see certain ecosystems looking to snap up maybe more, harness more growth potential, as we do see perhaps some companies not wanting to go to certain countries anymore? I come from Berlin, where we're starting to see that particular city looking to perhaps build up as they see startups looking in a less friendly way at the United Kingdom.
It's a great point. I think tech has become so global that if your policies aren't pro-tech, and what pro-tech means, I think, is still a bit of a question mark for a lot of governments. But I think there's areas like diversity in hiring, immigration, intellectual property protection. I think those kind of issues that are important to tech. If you aren't setting a government policy that supports the tech community, entrepreneurs have a ton of options these days. And so if you're in London and you're a fintech company, you probably are starting to think about places like Berlin and Dublin and Amsterdam more and more.
But Raj, have actually companies acted on that? When I was in Berlin just post the Brexit vote, we saw many of actually Berliners, some of the government, the policymakers in Berlin, going to London, advertising on the back of buses, on cars, saying, come and build your startups here in the German capital rather than the UK capital. But have many companies actually acted on that?
I think it was a little premature from the Berlin government. The reality is, there's a few companies, some of the large fintech companies in the UK, companies like TransferWise and Remitly, have paused their growth in the UK. What they're waiting to see is what happens when Brexit is actually triggered. And the key thing for fintech companies in the UK is the financial passport. This is what allows UK fintech companies to operate throughout the EU, to sell their goods and services. And I think there's a lot of focus on what's going to happen with the financial passport. If that financial passport doesn't continue to exist for UK fintech companies, then I think we'll see the real exodus. We'll see more funding going to companies outside of the UK. Already this year, it will be the first year where German fintech companies actually outraised UK fintech companies, and I think that that's a sign of things to come.